Yep, my name is Dylan West and I work for Expedia Group Information Technology as a systems administrator, and I've worked there for, coming up to 2 years now. So as an administrator, I'm supposed to be responsible for the day-to-day running of our corporate infrastructure, so making sure that people can log in, making sure that emails still work, etc. In addition to that, I'm also responsible for automating administrative tasks via PowerShell scripting or creating services using C#.net. And yeah, that's basically my job, day-to-day administration and light automation. Yeah, so like you have key metrics to adhere to. So like you want to try and aim for 3 nines basically uptime for most of your core infrastructure. So that means basically you have your system is up 99.9% of the time. And for some systems like authentication, you strive for things like 4 nines. So those are metrics you need to aim for, and it's not really super hard or fast. It's never like you're gonna be in trouble for not hitting it, but it's more of a goal, and then it's adhered to with strict monitoring via actual other monitoring teams who basically look at our systems and say, oh, this system's not behaving very well, this could affect service degradation, and then we go and look at it. So it's not super hard, really. It's more like we look at reports at the start of the day to make sure that everything's running smoothly, fix anything that isn't running smoothly, and then go on for the rest of our day.
Okay, thank you. So can you talk about the qualification and skill that the job required in terms of the hard skills, which is related to IT, and the soft skill like communication skills?
Yeah. So being a systems administrator doesn't really require much of a formal education. You can definitely be self-taught. Previously, if you were a Windows administrator, you could get by doing a certificate like an MCSA or an MCSE in Windows Server Administration. But nowadays, if you're doing what I do, it's more of you just need to learn how to script and how to code. Specifically, if you're moving into a Fortune 500 company, you're going to want to know how to, if you're a Windows administrator, know how to script using PowerShell, or at least know another programming language like C# or even VB.NET that targets the .NET framework, or at least know the .NET framework in some sort of a development capacity so that you can get by. Outside of that, you do need to know how network servers work. You need to know how computers interact with each other. You need to know how, depending on your technology stack, using Windows as an example, you need to know, you need to understand the file system very well. So generally a tertiary education, like say doing a diploma in IT networking or a diploma in just IT systems, I think it's called now, would generally be enough to be a systems administrator.
So what kind of qualification, like the certification you want to plan to get in the future? You have?
Any that I plan on getting in the future. Not really at the moment. For my current role, to move or get a promotion, for instance, I wouldn't really need a certification to do what I need to do. Really, certifications are more to get your foot in the door. The real big thing to actually getting a job is actually being able to talk to people and having just good communication skills. It's 50% of your job is writing documentation and talking to people. Maybe a quarter of your job is actually technical work, and the rest of it's meetings. So I suppose 75% of your time is talking to people.
Yeah, so what kind of experience, for example, the working experience will be helpful for doing the job?
Appearance.
Yeah, experience.
Oh, experience, not appearance, sorry. So being a systems administrator, you generally need a few years experience.
Yes.
If you're coming out of university, most companies will take you on as like a junior sysadmin or a junior systems engineer, quite, hunky-dory. If you're not coming from a formal background, like if you're not coming from a formal educational background, you'll typically start on like a help desk sort of tech support role, and you'll be there for a year. Then you'll move into a more like level 2 role, and then maybe after a year of you learning or basically picking up your skills, then you'll move on. So like
system admin is level 1?
Yeah, so a system administrator would be more in most companies would be more of a level 3. So yeah, if you're not coming from a formal educational background, you'll typically start level 1, do that for a year, do level 2, do that for like 6 months or a year, and then go on and actually do a level 3 sort of role like a systems administrator.
What kind of benefit that you can get from the current job for your future career, or like training some skills?
Really, at the moment, the only real path to progression from here would be to move into a more senior role, which would just be purely years experience, so stay as system administrator for a while, or moving into a slightly different role like a systems engineer role. And moving into a systems engineer role, basically you're building solutions end to end. So really what you would want to do is strive to specialize in a certain technology. So you would pick a technology and own it. So you would become, say, you would become very proficient in, say, Exchange, and become basically an Exchange administrator, right? And then you would basically move along and do that. So that's really, for me, I'm not looking to specialize in anything at the moment. But if I was going to specialize in something, I would probably be looking at, recertifying, getting maybe an MCSE, or basically picking up and owning a technology stack like, say, System Center for patching, etc., and then just owning that for 2-3 years and then moving into a more specialist role or something like that.
This is no power. Do you have the copy of the question list?
I do. You've got a copy too. Awesome.
So, what kind of challenge that you have met or will be likely to encounter in your jobs? Challenge.
Standard systems administrator roles will probably not exist the way that most people know them within the next 5 years. You're already seeing it in like where I work and in Fortune 500 companies, where increasingly sysadmins don't just generally know sort of everything. They typically are generalist, but then they have very robust either scripting skills or know how to code or know a programming language of some kind, so that they can actually make tools. So one of the most common things is there's been this increasing shift between moving away from systems administrators to moving towards people who are both basically systems administrators and developers, so the DevOps craze or whatever. And basically a lot of people are retraining to basically learn how to automate their own tasks, learn how to create web APIs so that other teams can consume data that they have more easily. So in the next 5 years or so, you'll see a lot of systems administrator roles, especially in the big companies, start to move more towards DevOps or DevOps engineer roles, and you'll also see more in the general ecosystem. Everyone's moving towards a platform-based sort of setup. So previously, when you're in a company, you would segregate everything into service groups. So like, I've got Exchange, that's a service, or email is a service, right? And in email you have Exchange and your SMTP servers, etc. And then you'll have, I've got authentication as a service, and then in authentication you'll have Active Directory or OpenLDAP or whatever you're using to authenticate users, or ADFS, which uses AD. But now we're seeing in a lot of the big companies, Google's doing this, we're doing this, other companies are doing this too, is they're moving towards having platforms which are very similar to service groups, but they're just structured differently. So basically administrators, engineers, they're taken away from these teams and they're put in more of a resource pool. So they'll say, I have a project that requires someone that knows how this authentication tool works, and they'll grab that person. So a lot of systems administrators in these big companies are now being forced to use, well, forced is a harsh word, they're being moved to use more like agile workflows, because it's just the way everything's going. Everything's moving towards moving away from the traditional developers, engineers, and operations, and more the merging of those roles together.
So that's the reason why you want to choose to get a bachelor degrees to learn some knowledge about
basically the reason why I'm doing a bachelor's degree is so that I can
So in your job, is
pick
there
up
any
skills.
like teamwork?
Yeah.
Or is more individual work? So how do you deal with the teamwork?
There's a lot of, because there's only 2 people in Sydney and everyone else is actually in America, or my whole management change is in America. There's a lot of individual work. So basically everyone in the team, in my team, are very generalist. We know every system a little bit, and then we know one particular system very, very well. So each person in each region owns one. So there's teamwork in terms of, say, if you have a project you're working on that requires, say, I have a project that, say, automates the creation of directories and shares for users, right? I can implement the user-facing side, but then I still need to have have one of my colleagues in the States actually set up the file servers and make sure that everything's okay. So there'll be teamwork when you're working on a project and there's a bit of overlap where you don't quite understand a particular technology that someone in your team understands, and so there'll be more like you'll hop on your morning meetings, talk it through, build an action plan, and then basically go through it. So yeah, most of it's individual, but really there's teamwork when your projects start to either overlap or when you start to need things outside of your specialist, your specialized skills.
Can you talk a little bit about career development?
Yeah. So
future promotion.
So I've already said becoming systems administrator. You know, if you don't have formal background, you start at level 1, then do level 2, and then you come into your level 3 systems administrator sort of role. And going forward from here, I think I mentioned this before, really there isn't much of a big jump. So you either move into a more senior position, like a team lead sort of position, or a management position, which is where a lot of people go, or you move into a more systems engineer role where you specialize in one technology stack and you no longer just keep things running, you build solutions end to end. Well, this is how it is at the company I work. Not really. It's not really hard to build new systems. It's hard to assess the business requirements and actually work out the costs and manage the project. That's the hard part. So once you specialize, then you start to need to pick up project management skills. You need to pick up more, your communication skills need to be on point. So if you were to want to progress from where I am, you would, and I need to do this too, basically need to improve your communication skills. You need to learn you need to learn project management skills, and you need to work with other people, because when you start building systems end to end, you can build them end to end yourself, but then someone needs to support it, which would be, what I'm now, a system administrator. I would support that tool. So yeah, career progression, you're either going into a senior administrator role or a management, or you're specializing going into an engineer role, in which case you're going to be picking up project management skills as well as skills you already have. Or you can just change fields completely. There's you either specialize or you go into management, basically.
So in your current jobs, is there any possible IT ethical issue?
Plenty of ethical issues. There's ethical issues in any company you work in, whether it is someone in the company is acting fraudulently, and you come across an email which proves that they've been acting fraudulently. You have a duty of care to basically either report that to your legal team or to the relevant authorities, but sometimes some people don't do that, and so that can be unethical to hide that information. So especially when you get to a level 3 position where you actually have access to a plethora of files or a plethora of basically anyone's emails, you can see if you really wanted to, you can come across this information and you have to report it, and some people don't. And so that's an ethical issue. Another ethical issue is, because you have access to so many files, you have access to HR's files because you have access to the servers where their files are stored on. So you could find out, for instance, if someone has a disease or a disability that HR knows about for whatever reason, you could find out about that and then may discriminate about that. That could be an ethical issue. Or you could have access to, say, payroll advices for everyone, so you would know what everyone's paid, etc. So really, this is why I said, when it comes to hiring, a lot of times, 25% of your job's technical, the rest of it's communication, really, and documentation. The way companies get around these ethical issues is they hire people that they trust. And if they can't trust you, then they're not going to give you the job because
Information
they
is confidential.
they can't watch every move you do. They can't see every single thing you do without interfering with your work, and so they have to just trust that you're going to behave in an ethical manner, basically.
So this is specific to the IT.
Yeah, it's the same with with probably more so with administrators than say developers, for instance. Well, developers, there's a lot of ethical issues really, but with administrators, especially in a lot of companies, they have access to almost everything when you get to the level 3 or the senior role. So really, a lot of ethical issues come up with regards to data access.
So let's talk about the advice or suggestion for the undergraduate students. So do you have any suggestion or advice for the university student to get a preparations for the future job, like being a system administration?
Don't go. No, sorry. I wasn't going to say don't go to uni. If you're an undergraduate and you want to be a systems administrator, I would encourage you to learn a programming language, and I would encourage you to learn how to build web services, web applications, understand how they work, understand the Internet of Things. They're going to be helpful, even if you don't actually really get into it. Just having an understanding helps. Learning and understanding how networking works, knowing how to actually use, a lot of people are going to hate me for this, but knowing how to use Cisco iOS devices or Juniper devices, you're just going to have to know how they work. Not necessarily to implement them, but definitely so that you can fix issues, because administrators triage issues, they fix issues, right? And you can't fix issues if you don't know where something is broken, or you don't know how to find where something or a particular issue is being caused. So if you want to be an administrator, you should learn how to program. It's going to help you understand how computers work. It's going to help you understand how they interact with each other, and it'll also help you better appreciate generally just how everything works in a broad spectrum. You just really should know these things. You should know networking so that you can triage. You should know, hopefully, your system of choice, whether it's Linux or Windows. And if you're on Linux, you're already going to learn how to do everything from the command line. And if you don't know how to do anything from the command line in Linux, you're not getting a job. Sorry. If you're on the Windows side, you don't have to do everything from the command line, but boy, should you, because I don't know a single company that I interact with anymore that hire Windows administrators that don't know how to do things with PowerShell, using PowerShell. So you should learn a programming language or a scripting language, and you should, no matter what technology stack you know, learn how to do it from the command line as well.
So is there any like internship experience is quite important?
Yeah, industry experience is very important, especially for moving up. I mean, you're definitely going to want, if you're coming out of university, you're probably not going to land a sysadmin job. Let's be honest. Most companies will look at you and say, you do not have the experience or the technical know-how to do this job. They might give you a junior graduate role, or maybe some smaller companies will actually give you a systems administrator role. But you're still going to be basically sitting there doing tickets or ticket work for 2 years maybe. It's going to happen, because until you have that experience, you're not going to do anything. And you will learn more in the first 6 months about how things are actually done than in university. And that's not to discredit formal education or anything. It's just true. When you learn in university, you're going to learn the best way things are done, and then you're going to get into the real world and see it's not done that way at all. It's complete chaos. Everything is basically built over time and just added on as you go. So you're going to learn very quickly that almost nothing's done best practice because it's expensive, and you're going to learn how to deal with that. And so you're going to learn a lot in the first 6 months, and that's why most companies won't say, here, you're a sysadmin, have access to everything, because you're unproven, basically.
So last question is about what's kind of difficulty for a newbie in your company, in your job? New person?
New person?
Yeah. Newbie.
Probably making friends, honestly, and doing your job. The real difficulty to someone just entering IT is getting rid of that concept that everything is going to be done in the best practice. Nothing absolutely almost nothing will be done in the best way unless it is completely built from scratch and you were there when you saw it be built from scratch. It just won't, and even then it won't be best practice, because it's too expensive, etc. And the biggest difficulty is going to be learning not only to kind of get rid of that, but also how to use that company's tools, because every company uses a different ticket managing solution. You have to learn how to use it. Every company uses different software to do different things. You're going to have to learn to use the software that they provide you, or bring your own. Yeah. So you're gonna have to. So the hardest thing that's gonna happen in the first 6 months is learning that nothing's done best practice way, learning how to use the company's tools, and then after 6 months, really, it's just making sure that you do your work, because almost no company expects you to be operating at full gas basically for the first 6 months, because you're new. You don't know how the business works. You don't know who your manager reports to, what your manager likes, whatever. So the biggest difficulty is basically getting familiar with the company that you work in, and then after that, just keep learning. You don't stop learning. If you stop learning, you won't have a job. So keep learning, keep reading the latest industry trends, and just keep going for it. You don't necessarily need to do certifications, but you definitely need to keep reading up and practicing, and making sure that you don't make anyone angry, making sure that your communication skills are again on point, because if no one wants to work with you, it's going to be very difficult for you to either get ahead or get a new job or get anything done. Because another thing that happens is when you get to certain positions in IT, you need to sell projects. You need to sell to the business why something is a good idea. You need to say, you're using this software that was made in the 90s and it hasn't been updated in 10 years, and it's completely insecure, and there's a business risk here. If you just say, look, you just got to replace it and give me $500,000, am I good? They're going to tell you no. If you sit down and explain why. So this is the next thing. So once you get past that newbie sort of mentality, and you get past everything's not okay, then you need to be able to sell things. You need to become a bit of a part salesman. You need to be able to talk to people, because if you can't do it, basically you won't be able to improve anything or fix anything really. So you need to be able to convince people to
persuading.
You need to learn the art of persuasion or whatever.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing the information for us, and this is the end of the interview.
That's okay. All right. Thank you.